No, I just said it. This is a true passion of mine, and I love talking about this. So, yeah, Carnivore Diet. The title, I played around with the title a little bit a few times. I didn't really know how to call it, but I think this is the best way to call it: a return to our species appropriate diet. In a moment, you'll get the idea why I chose that title. Just a little bit about myself to start with. Can you see this properly from even with the light? Yeah. This was me. I used to live in Thailand for 11 years, and I had a health food cafe in Thailand for a few years. I was vegan. I started off as raw vegan at the time. I was vegan. I was vegetarian. I kind of did it all a little bit. And I had a health food cafe, and as you can see here, I prepared big green smoothies and juices because everything had to be green, and the greener the better, and the more green the better. And I was helping people with juice detoxes, and I was really into the whole vegan mindset. That led me also to study integrative nutrition in 2012 because I wanted to be able to work as a coach and help people feel better through the vegan way, basically. So I studied integrative nutrition in 2012. I worked for a few years while I was still in Thailand as a health coach. I always went through my times of vegan and vegetarian, and I always kept on believing that in the end, all we need is really vegetables. And especially I was a big fan of green juices. But meat was kind of the devil incarnated. Until this was me before. That photo really shocks me. I've got another one, I believe, coming up on the next slide. Do I? No, I don't. This is the only one. This was in 2019. I was kind of vegetarian at the time, 45 years old. I'm 50 now, and I was 62 kilos. I actually came across this photo quite recently, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe. And I was just speaking with Sonia about this as well, because we've known each other for 10 years. It's like, how come no one ever told me that I looked like an African starving child? But truly, I mean, it was terrible. I mean, you could see my ribs, my arms. I've always had quite skinny arms. It kind of runs in the family. So of course that got even worse when I was like that. But I thought I was healthy because I was drinking like 4-5 times a week green juices, and I was eating heaps of vegetables. I used to eat like these massive salads. Like friends of mine would come over to my house to eat salads because I made these beautiful massive salads, and I was always bloated, which I didn't realize until I wasn't bloated anymore, how bloated I was. And I was always gassy, and my stool was terrible. But yeah, I was always looking for what that could be, because for sure it can't be the vegetables, can it? Because you need to eat vegetables. This was 2 years ago now. I was in Thailand with my little boy, Leon. I started eating some more meat there, but when I saw this photo, I completely forgot about that photo. And when I saw that photo after the holiday, I was like, oh my God, I'm 49 years old, and I started to have this true dead bud. You know, there was never really shape in my body, but started to get a little, I don't know if you can see it properly here, a little bit of a belly, I noticed. And, you know, everything gets a little bit more saggy as you get older. And I looked at that photo, I was like, oh my God, something needs to change. Then I got introduced into the carnivore diet by a friend of mine who suffered a lot from depression, and he got into keto and eventually turned carnivore because, you know, when he was keto, I was looking online, and you know how the algorithm works when you're on YouTube. You look for, let's say, keto, and then it slips in carnivore stuff. So he started to look into carnivore, and then he told me, like, you should look into carnivore. And I was like, what do you mean, just eating meat? Are you insane? You want to die? You want to get a heart attack? You want to have high cholesterol? All these standard things. Until I met up with him. He lived in Portugal, and I saw him. I was like, oh my God, you look absolutely amazing. He was like, join me for a week. And so I did. For a week, I just ate meat, and that changed my life. That was in the beginning of April 2023. So basically just after this trip. So I saw this photo, I changed to meat, and I started to get enormous amounts of energy. Well, to cut a long story short, I started doing workouts because I had so much, all of a sudden, I had so much energy. My digestion was great. I had all this energy. I had to do something. So I started doing body weight workouts at home. And very soon, I turned from, and I mean, I'll never be a big bodybuilder, but from that skinny vegan to this. So this was last year in Ibiza and in Salinas, on the hike around Salinas. And I'd already gained quite some weight. This was this summer, and I'm heavier even now, and not heavier as in fatter, because I'm still wearing the same clothes that I was wearing there. So even though I was 62 kilos there, and now I'm 78 this morning. Yeah, right. So, and I don't only look different, I just feel so incredibly different. So that led me to think like, okay, I want to help other people feel like this as well. I couldn't help people through the vegan lifestyle because I think in the end, I never maybe truly believed it. This I started to believe. And since I also trained as a health coach and I studied integrative nutrition, I was like, wow, why am I not going to help other guys? I'm a middle-aged guy now. I see so many of my friends around me. They're getting big and fat, and I want to help these guys feel awesome as well. So there we go. Bit of a background story. The first thing I think you want to look at, because like I said, when that friend of mine introduced me into the carnivore diet, the first thing I thought was like, are you crazy? Just eating meat? What's wrong with you? And that cognitive dissonance that we don't need to eat vegetables and that we can just live off meat. You know, I've lived for 49 years of my life believing I have to eat vegetables. Your parents tell you, like, eat your vegetables, you know, and then your meat. Vegetables, vegetables, vegetables. That's not gone in a few weeks. That takes a good amount of time to come to the realization that maybe we don't need it. But I also wanted to have some type of backup, like not just like, oh, I don't need it, but why wouldn't I need it? Because so many people say, and especially the vegans, and I was the same, saying like, yeah, but we are built for vegetables. Look at our teeth. We're like primates and we have these teeth and our intestines and all these reasons why we have to eat vegetables. So I started looking into that. Well, when you become carnivore and you start reading up on being a carnivore, you automatically get this information fed. So you start looking at the animal kingdom. What do animals eat? Well, what vegans often love is to refer to kind of our ancestors, right? Which are the primates, the apes, if you wish. I've just taken an image of a gorilla there, but it could be a silverback gorilla, it could be whatever other monkey or primate or ape, whatever you want to call it. What do they eat? Question for you.
Whatever they find.
Yeah, but mostly, what is actually their diet, their preferred diet? If they can, they munch on. Yeah, they plant. Okay, they're vegetarian. Exactly. They eat vegetables, if you wish. Yeah. However, they're absolutely massive. How many vegetables do you need to eat to get that big?
Cool.
Yeah, but they don't really eat that much. Surely they eat a lot. But if you look at calorie per calorie, how many vegetables do you need to eat in order to become that big ass gorilla? So then the interesting thing is like, okay, so how do they get that big? Well, it's because it's not the vegetables that creates their mass and because they're super strong as well, aren't they? It's the fermentation that happens of these vegetables in their body. The vegetables get fermented in their intestines, and the fermentation, the bacteria eventually die, and they are the food. They provide the fatty acids that gorillas use as energy. So, in short, gorillas don't live off carbohydrates, they live off fat. It's just that they don't eat fat, but their body turns their food, their intestines turn their food into fat, which is interesting because you come to realize, you'll see it in a moment, that they actually, from all the big animals, there's not a single animal that actually gets their energy from vegetables. They all get their energy from the fermentation of vegetables and the bacteria subsequently that die in their intestines. So most of the big animals all run on fat. But just like a gorilla, cows, sheep, and goats, they also eat grass, but they have the system. Like these guys are ruminants, right? So they have several stomachs where they can break down fiber. Humans, we can't really break down fiber, but we'll get to that in a second. They can break down fiber, and that ferments in their stomachs, and that ferments and ferments, and that it creates the fatty acids on which they eventually, or from which they get their energy. So then that story when vegans say like, yeah, but you know, a gorilla gets big by eating leaves. Yes, but actually no. It's not that simple. It's not they just eat leaves and leaves make them big gorillas. It's the process that happens in their body, and in the end, it's fatty acids that give them their energy. I love AI because you can just say, give me a photo of a lion and a polar bear next to each other. There's no way you can find a stock photo online with that. And I just added dogs later to it, so there's no photo of a dog here. What are they designed to eat? Sorry?
Carnivores.
They are carnivores. Yeah, so they eat, well, they don't eat necessarily, they can eat carnivores as well, but they eat other animals, right? Because they don't have the digestive system to break down fiber, so they eat other animals, not only just for their protein, but also because of the fat that they need, again, as a fuel source, because there's basically two fuel sources that animals can live off. It's either sugars, carbohydrates, or it's fat. If it's not carbohydrates, it has to be fat. So lions and polar bears, they're carnivores. And here comes an interesting one. Dogs are carnivores as well. But for example, the time that I lived in Thailand, the Thais would always give their scraps, like their rice leftovers and the curries and everything, and the dogs would eat it all. If you would give that to a cat, they wouldn't eat that because a cat. So I came to the realization, or I learned, it was not so much my own realization, it is this stuff you learn, that there's two types of carnivores. There's the obligate carnivores, and there's facultative carnivores. Obligate carnivores are like lions, polar bears, cats, all the cat-like ones. They can only live off meat. And then you have the obligate ones. For example, dogs are obligate carnivores. Their preferred fuel source, their preferred food is meat, but they can also live off other stuff. It's not ideal. And then I thought, like, that's interesting. Maybe, what if we are actually facultative carnivores as well? Because it's always said like we are omnivores.
I mean, dogs are facultative as well.
Dogs are facultative. Yeah. They're not obligative. Did I say that? I meant facultative. Yeah. So, and what if we are facultative carnivores as well? Yes, we can live off other stuff when needed, but our preferred fuel source in the end is fat, which comes from meat, because our bodies cannot make fatty acids out. It has a tiny bit, but not enough in order to fuel our body from vegetables. Then, of course, another interesting question is also like, so what about our ancestors? Because we can talk about the primates, but God, that was so long ago. We're nothing like them anymore. But what if we look at the Neanderthals and the Homo heidelbergensis that are our closest ancestors? What did they eat? Well, you've heard about hunter-gatherers. They hunted. There was really not so much to gather in the old days. I mean, now, since the agricultural revolution, especially in modern day, you got like your fields with grains, and you got your spinaches and your kale and your broccoli and whatever else. But in the past, that all didn't exist. There were some root vegetables, there might have been some berries, but even the fruit that we have these days is nothing like what it used to be like in the old days. But they needed a massive caloric intake because they were busy all day hunting, and gathering, perhaps. So the Neanderthals needed like almost 1.5, 2 times as much as the average human being now. The Heidelbergensis even way more. I mean, I've even read that some sources say that they needed up to 7,000 calories a day. I don't know if you know anything, but on average, the average man needs 2,500 calories. Woman around 2. So that is like 3 or 4 times more. How much spinach do you need to gather in one day in order to get that? It's just impossible. So where do you get your energy from? What is your food source? Meat. And it says it: protein, fat, little bit of carbs for the Neanderthals, not really any carbs for the Heidelbergensis. These are the guys that basically created us. So why all of a sudden would we be eating, or basically, yeah, why would we be the vegetable eaters that so many people believe that we are, or should be, rather? So then we come to humans. Now the question is, what would you have said if I asked you what we were designed to eat before I told you this whole story? And what is your answer now? I believe that these were our ancestors. So this is the diet that we should be eating as well these days. And again, we can live off vegetables if we need to. But is it our ideal diet? I don't believe so. I've lived off vegetables and I felt shit. I live mostly off meat now. I'm not 100% carnivore because I don't think we're 100% carnivores. I think it's great as an elimination diet when you deal with a lot of health issues. We'll talk about that in a second. So I introduced some other things in my diet, definitely not anything processed. But I believe that as humans, we are facultative carnivores, and our body runs best on predominantly at least 70, if not more percent of our calories coming from animal protein. So are we designed to eat that shit? Man, I've eaten that stuff, of course, in my life as well. And especially when you're in your 20s, it doesn't really matter so much. You can just really ruin your body pretty badly. As you get older, those things start to have more of an effect. Plus, I think when we were young, there was not so much of that stuff around like there is today. So what are we designed to eat? Not that stuff. I don't really think this stuff either. Brussels sprouts didn't exist in the past. I mean, if we really want to eat like hunter-gatherers, there were no Brussels sprouts when we were hunter-gatherers. They've all been created by humans, by hybridizing other types of vegetables. I think that's our diet. Now, of course, there's not a lot of wild bison walking around anymore these days, especially not in Europe. But anyway, so what's the closest that we find to that? It's other ruminant animals like cows, sheep, those types of animals. And I think that's also the reason why the world, and again, I lived in Thailand. I've seen the Thais over the years becoming more and more unhealthy by introducing Western foods, drinking Coke. I used to work, I did a lot of Thai boxing when I was in Thailand, just recreationally. And I worked behind the bar when there were fight nights. And I remember there was this Thai kid. I guess he was maybe 12 or 13. Absolutely massive, and he would come to the bar where I worked and he would be like, Coke, 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 and he would repeat himself like 6 times if I couldn't hear him. But that's what happened. They imported all the Western foods and they started to grow. Plus, of course, a thing in poorer countries is when you're big, it's a sign that you're wealthy because it means you can eat all that crap. So the modern day diet disaster is that we in the West, we have all this food available, right? We can buy anything we want. And I see it with my son now compared to when I was young. The choice that there is in the supermarkets on crisps and all that crap, there's so much of it. We added sugar to everything. In the 50s and 60s, there was still like animal fats that were being used. I remember, not that I'm that old, but my dad fried, if we made homemade French fries, he would fry it in tallow. That, of course, changed because that had to become sunflower oil and corn oil and rapeseed oil and whatever other vegetable oils, because they are heart healthy, right? If they're so heart healthy, why are we all dying of cancers and heart disease now? It's a correlation, not necessarily a causation, but it's quite obvious, isn't it? Then you've got all the taste enhancers that we put in our foods. Lots of stuff is ultra processed. We got GMOs. Well, the list, of course, is endless. So, what is the carnivore diet? Well, I think it's not really a difficult question anymore. Basically, anything that it's a lifestyle that's focused on eating anything that comes from an animal. So, it can be dairy. Not everybody is dairy tolerant. So, a lot of people don't eat dairy, but you can. It's part of it. Eggs, meat, fish, fowl, poultry, anything basically that is an animal you can eat on the carnivore diet, which makes it also really easy because there's so many diets where people are like, oh, can I eat this? Can I eat that? Is it from an animal? You can eat it. Is it not from an animal? Don't eat it if you want to be strict carnivore, which again, as I said earlier, as an elimination diet is perfect to heal yourself from a lot of issues, gut issues, inflammation in your body, joint issues, skin issues, lots of issues. In my personal opinion, you don't have to remain a carnivore for the rest of your life. However, a lot of people do, and they're perfectly fine. I used to have really bad psoriasis. It got worse and worse and worse. And it's so much better. It's not entirely gone, but maybe also because I do integrate some fruits, not really vegetables, sauerkraut in my diet. So I'm not 100% clean carnivore, if you wish. Maybe it would be even better, but it has gotten so much better already. And like I said, no more bloating. And my stool was perfect. No more gas. No more. Listen, as a vegan, I used to have the worst farts in the world. Smelly, smelly. Now you don't smell them anymore. I fart anywhere, anytime. It doesn't matter. If Jans was to treat me here and I needed to fart, I would fart because I know he won't smell it. It's incredible. In the plane, I always have to fart a lot in the plane, probably the air pressure difference. I would sit on the plane like, oh, I don't want to do it because I feel bad for everybody around me. Now it's like, it doesn't matter. Like literally, it doesn't matter. So on the carnivore diet, again, if you're strict carnivore, you avoid any plant-based foods. If you're on more like me, a facultative carnivore diet, I don't necessarily avoid plant-based food. I kind of do, but I eat some berries. I eat some honey, raw honey. What else? Berries, raw honey, sauerkraut, because I like the kind of the soury when you eat a fat. Because of course, when you eat a lot of meat, it's a lot of fatty foods, and I like that kind of contrast when I eat sauerkraut. That nice soury, fresh taste. But it's just my personal preference. But yeah, definitely, of course, no processed foods, no chemicals, no additives, nothing of that. And just only doing that, of course, cutting out processed foods, chemicals, and additives already makes your body so much healthier, even if you don't cut. Because I don't want to necessarily demonize plants. I do want to talk about plants a little bit in a moment, but of course, there's way worse things in the world than plants. So the carnivore, you might have heard of keto diet. Keto diet is a low carb diet, right? So you basically eat a moderate protein, high fat, and tiny little amount of carbs, maximum 20 grams, which is really, really not a lot. I think a few strawberries already will do it. So carnivore diet is kind of the keto diet, but it's kind of on steroids, except that the steroids are ribeye. So you don't even eat any carbs. So your body is always in ketosis, which means it's always burning fat rather than sugars as the preferred energy source. You don't also then have to balance your macros. You don't have to say like, oh, how much is this and how many carbs? I need to weigh this. Oh, this is 3 strawberries. It's 21 grams. Now I need to pick it smaller. No, you just eat meat. Simple as that. You don't even have to think about things. It's ideal. You can fry it in heaps of butter and tallow. I make my own tallow. It's so nice. So benefits, I think we spoke about a few already. I think for me, one of the massive, massive benefits that I noticed in the beginning was steady energy. You don't have these ups and downs anymore that you have when your body runs on carbohydrates. You just have steady energy. There's no more 4 o'clock afternoon crashes. There's no, I used to get so hangry. You know the term hangry, angry and hungry. But friends of mine, they would see it on me. I would just turn quiet. I couldn't say anything anymore. I would start shaking, and don't piss me off because I would I would get so angry until I had like a croissant or something. Because that's what happens, you know, you're walking through town, you feel like your blood sugar is plummeting. You need something because otherwise you're just going to be an absolute monster to your environment. So what do? You grab whatever is available. Nice croissant. Okay, I feel good again, but have you fed your body? Not really. So you got this steady energy throughout the whole day. You got much clearer thinking. When you wake up in the morning, you're switched on. I don't need coffee anymore. I like coffee. I drink coffee, but I don't need it in order to wake up and get going, because my body produces its own cortisol when I wake up, which is the wake up hormone. I don't need to add another load of coffee onto that. No more bloating. People who suffer from irritable bowel disease, a lot of people, you don't have to run to the nearest bathroom anymore. It's really ideal. Another thing as well, especially for men, your libido goes up. Um, because you're feeding your body right, and because you're keeping your cortisol in check. Surely there's other things in life that, you know, if you have a super stressful life and you've got a super stressful job, just eating meat is not all of a sudden going to make you a 25-year-old god again. But if you, I think if you start living the carnivore lifestyle, as I call it, because I don't really like the word diet, because it almost feels like you just do it for a few months and then you go off it, like you do with so many diets. If you live the carnivore lifestyle, then you also start looking at other parts in your life that are not beneficial for your health and for your longevity. So what's then the deal with vegetables? Well, because we all had to eat, oh God, Brussels sprout. You remember, I think we're all kind of the same age, more or less. When I was a kid, Brussels sprouts were gross. They were bitter, they were gross. I didn't want to eat them. The last time I ate them a few years ago, they were actually really nice because they've been genetically modified to take that bitterness out of them. Why were they bitter? Because they didn't want to be eaten. Animals, no, I should say everything in life, no, let's put it like this. Nothing in life wants to be eaten. However, many things have to be eaten in order for other life to continue. Dogs can bite and can run away. We can run away, we can fight. Birds can fly away. Snakes can bite you and have poison. Everything has a defense mechanism. But vegetables, plants, call them that way, they're stuck to the ground. Now, with the exception of fruits, which want to be eaten because they want their seeds to be scattered around so they can grow more trees and stuff and bushes, vegetables, they're stuck to the ground. They don't want to be eaten because they want to flower so that their flowers can then create more of those vegetables. So what happens is they have their own defense mechanisms. They got oxalates, they got lectins, they got phytoestrogens, they got all kinds of defense mechanisms that basically ward off animals that want to eat them, like the Brussels sprouts. They're super bitter. If you give a Brussels sprout, the old school Brussels sprout, to a child, like to me when I was a kid, you would spit it out again. That's a natural reaction. But your parents go like, eat your sprouts, eat your sprouts. And as a child, you're like, fuck, this stuff is rank. But you need to eat it. There's a reason why our body doesn't want to eat it, because it's not good for us. Yes, sure, there's vitamins in there. Yes, sure, there's minerals in there. It's not like it's devoid of nutrients, but it doesn't want to be eaten. So what happens is they have anti-nutrients, which in turn prevent us from absorbing certain nutrients, which can cause kidney stones, which can cause harm to the gut and cause inflammation. And a lot of people, like the phytoestrogens that you find in soy and in flax seeds, they can disrupt hormones. If you're sensitive to it, and especially, I remember having this chat with Jans about when we had this talk about a year ago. You you spoke about the hormetic effect. When you can have something that is bad for you, and it makes your body more resilient. For example, muscle pain. It's a kind of a good pain, because when you have muscle pain, it means you've been working out and your muscles are growing, and it's a pain, but it's not a warning pain in that sense. So there's a hormetic effect in things. But the problem is that so many people suffer from so many diseases that can very well be caused by eating plant food, because we also don't know how much. I drank 5, I call them rocket fuels, 5 massive half-liter green juices 5 days a week, with spinach, with kale. That stuff, is that a normal amount to eat, or should you maybe just be eating 1 leaf of spinach a week for it to be beneficial? So the cumulative effect of vegetables, no one has done any research into it. The fact is that a lot of people, when they stop eating vegetables, a lot of their health issues go away. Of course, when they stop eating processed foods as well, but also when they stop eating vegetables. When I turned carnivore, I did eat vegetables for the first few months. At first, a lot, less, and less, because like I said earlier, the cognitive dissonance is so strong. When you tell people that you eat mostly meat, it's like, but what about the vegetables? We've been ingrained with the idea that we have to eat vegetables. Color, the rainbow color of vegetables you have to eat in order to be the 5 a day. So then there's a few common myths. Fiber, we need fiber to poop, right? Without fiber, you can't poop. I can tell you from experience, absolutely bullshit. Anybody who follows the carnivore diet can tell you from experience, absolute bullshit. You don't need it for digestion. In fact, fiber is an anti-nutrient, because what happens is when you eat a lot of fiber, which I used to do because I needed a lot of fiber, so I had these massive salads, my stool was terrible, but it also prevents your body from actually absorbing nutrients. And on the carnivore diet, you don't have any problem going to the toilet. The amount of stool becomes way less because you have way less fiber in your diet, so there's less waste that needs to come out. But it's fat that keeps things moving smoothly, and of course water. You need to drink enough water as well. But it's not the fiber. It's not like if you're constipated, drinking glasses of, what's that stuff called again? Psyllium husk, to just let it. I've done it, like, lots of psyllium husk to clean out your bowels. What a load of bollocks. Nutritional deficiencies. One of the first things that I asked my mate who introduced me into the carnivore diet was like, what about vitamin C? Aren't you going to get scurvy? Meat has pretty much all the nutrients you need, all the vitamins and all the minerals. We can talk about if the way we raise animals still has everything, but we can also talk about if the conventional way of growing vegetables with soil depletion also has, whether the vegetables still have all the nutrients. So let's just cancel those two out. Meat contains all the nutrients you need. Vitamin C, there's hardly any in meat, but when you stop eating carbohydrates, the vitamin C need of your body drops massively. There's not a single carnivore in the world who's ever developed scurvy. So it works. There's a lot of carnivores. I follow a few big guys, I'll mention the names in a moment, who are just only eating muscle meat, who never eat liver. It's good to do it, you can do it, who never eat kidneys, brain, hearts and stuff. You can just eat muscle meat, and that's still enough, and they live for years. And one of these guys is jacked as well. And then, of course, there's the red meat scare stories. Red meat causes bowel cancer. It causes heart disease. Da da da. There's no proof of that. There's correlations, but you can also correlate to say, like, okay, in the summer, more people are wearing Hawaiian shirts, and in the summer, more people die of heat stroke. So that means that Hawaiian shirts cause heat stroke. And you can make any correlation you want in the world. There's no causal proof that meat causes cancer or meat causes heart disease. Processed meat is a different story. But just meat as it is intended to be, You know, the way, I mean, we can dive deeper into this if you want, but the way these studies are set up is that they send out questionnaires to people and ask them what they've been eating over the past year. Do you remember what you ate last week, Monday? I had a ribeye, probably. So then, of course, there's a lot of people saying, like, hey, isn't it very restrictive, the carnivore diet? Well, in a way, perhaps, yeah, it is. On the other hand, you never have to count calories anymore. Any diet, especially, of course, women who want to lose weight, or it's always calorie counting, calorie counting. You don't have to do it anymore. With the carnivore diet, you eat till you're full and you eat when you're hungry. It's as simple, actually, I should say, you eat when you're hungry and you eat till you're full. That's it. You don't have to count anything anymore. You're not dealing with this constant hunger anymore. When I'm hungry, and I, like what I said in the old day, in the old days, but yeah, in the old days, if I was hungry, I needed something. Now, if I'm hungry and I don't eat for another 3 hours, it's fine. Surely I'm hungry, but I'm definitely not hangry, and I'll survive for a few more hours. So you don't, it's not, you're not obsessed with that in your mind anymore. You basically just eat satisfying and nutrient dense meals. The sugar addiction kind of ties into what I just said. That one disappears really quick, actually. A lot of people are addicted to carbs, but that goes rather quick because it's very interesting how the body works. When you feed it right, it quite quickly starts asking for shit because you're feeding your body properly. So why would it ask for cookies? You're full, you're satiated, you're great, you feel good, not only mentally but physically as well. So your body is not going to ask for cookies anymore or whatever other crap we're eating. Of course, it can be a slightly more expensive diet. Not necessarily. I don't think it's necessarily because meat is expensive. Of course, good quality grass-fed meat gets quite expensive. But it's probably because a lot of the shitty food is so cheap. So that becomes the norm. It's like, hey, I can make myself a spaghetti bolognese with the bolognese sauce from the supermarket, and everything ready, and my spaghetti, and it cost me a few euro. Surely, if you eat a piece of meat, it's more expensive. Does that make it meat expensive, or does it mean that the alternatives, the crappy alternatives, are just way too cheap? Yet, if you're on a diet, I just found in Sant'Eulalia a halal butcher where my normal butcher charges 28 euros per kilo for a ribeye. These guys charge 15 euros per kilo for a ribeye. I don't know if it comes from the same farm. I don't know about, there's many things I don't know, but it can be much cheaper. Also, ground beef, of course, isn't very expensive. Chicken isn't that expensive, and organ meats are definitely not that expensive because people don't really want to eat organ meats, and they're very nutritious. So you can do it budget friendly. And in my personal opinion, I don't mind spending more money on quality food if it makes me feel awesome. Why would I spend less and feel less? I'd rather spend a little bit more and feel great. Plus, I save a lot of money on not going out for dinner. Because if I go to a restaurant and I order a steak, I get a tiny little steak like this because they want you to fill up on the bread with the garlic butter, you know, or the whatever the aioli, and then there's the French fries and everything else. I just want a steak. So I don't really go out for dinner because when I eat a steak like this, that's like a starter for me. So you save a lot of money on going out for dinner as well. It's not always the fun thing to do necessarily. And sometimes I do go out for dinner and then I'll just have some vegetables and some meat, but it's way less than before. So that's where you save your money. Let's assume that you think after this talk, like, oh my God, I'm going to give this a try. This is awesome. How are you going to start? Depending on how healthy you already are or not, there's a few things you got to keep in mind. I would suggest if you come from a standard diet, start by replacing at least one meal a day with meat. Slowly transition into it. If you go cold turkey from a standard diet into a carnivore diet, you're going to get sick. It's okay. You'll get better really soon, much better, but you are going to get sick, what they call this the keto flu. So you want to take it easy. You want to focus on fatty cuts like a ribeye. You want to salt it for flavor, and you want to take some electrolytes, because when you stop eating carbohydrates, your body starts dumping quite a bit of water. That's also the first weight that you lose on a keto or on a carnivore diet, is often water weight. But you also lose a lot of electrolytes through it. So you might, in the beginning, especially need to take some extra electrolytes. At first, you might feel off. Of course, because all of a sudden you're changing your diet. Your whole microbiome needs to adjust as well to having more protein. Your gallbladder needs to adjust because it needs to secrete way more bile in order to digest the fat. So take it easy in the beginning. I went in full force, and I was lucky. I didn't have any symptoms of keto flu, or I actually felt straight away the massive benefits with full power. But a lot of people don't. So transition into it slowly. Again, what do you eat? You eat ribeye, you eat ground beef, chicken wings, it doesn't matter. Pork, I personally feel like it's more of a side dish rather than a main dish. You know, I eat bacon. It's actually the only pork I eat. Pork are monogastric animals. They only have one stomach. So especially if they're being fed crap, the more stomachs the animal has, like ruminants, the more of the crap that they might get, especially in the regular kind of livestock industry, the more it gets filtered out. Pigs only have one stomach, so they can carry some more crap in them. So I don't think pork is necessary. Surely sometimes you can have a pork steak, it's nice, but it's not like your main thing. Your main thing, again, is red meat that you want to eat. Eggs are absolute amazing nutrient bombs, ideally organic. Luckily, they're very easy to get, and they're not expensive compared to organic meat, which of course gets expensive. Fish, ideally like fish that has not been raised like the salmon in fish farms. Butter and tallow. I'm a big fan of tallow. I just go to the butcher, ask for a kilogram of fat, put it in the air fryer, 12 minutes, 120 degrees, and you got like, how much would it be? Probably 700 milliliters of beautiful, beautiful tallow. It's perfect. So organic versus non-organic. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that organic is better than non-organic. And also that the life of the animal has been much better when they've been raised organic and they've been running around in the fields. For example, when I go to Portugal quite often, and in Portugal, the butchers, there's cows everywhere, and the cows, when you ask them where the cows come from, it's like from behind the house there. They run around in the fields. Whether that makes them organic, not necessarily. They could probably still get GMO style foods. I don't know, but at least they've been happy and running around. So if I can eat that, surely. Is it more nutrient dense? Absolutely. Is it better for you? Does it have more omega-3 and less omega-6? Yes. Should you therefore not eat normal factory meat, if you want to call it? I don't believe so, because I just feel so much better. But even eating that, I try not to get my steak from the supermarket. I'll get it from the butcher. I cannot promise that the source is not the same, but at least I have the feeling that if I go to the butcher, it's more like traditional. I go to the butcher and he brings out this big rack and he just cuts my ribeye, and I just hope that that animal has a better life and has been fed better and had better circumstances while it was raised than the one from the supermarket. Organic meat has less fat, so if you really go, if your wallet allows you to, and you do eat just organic meat, which I would love to, but I'm not in a financial position, you do want to add more tallow and more butter to your meat, because there's a massive difference in the fat, and fat, it does taste nice. So it's real. So good. About hormones and antibiotics, there's a big difference in Europe, in the European Union, compared to, for example, the States, probably South America, Asia as well. They're very strict in Europe. They could probably be stricter, but the EU forbids, for example, growth promoting hormones. They also forbid the import of meat that has been used. That there's been big rows between the States and Europe, because Europe said, like, sorry, not having your shit, because whatever you do with your meat, that's not up to our standards. So there's been apparently in the past a lot of troubles about that. There are stricter regulations when it comes to the use of antibiotics. There is no preventative use, like, oh, we got a whole bunch of cows, they might get sick, so let's give them all antibiotics. It's only for treatment. Then there's also a washout period, so you cannot give a cow antibiotics and then bring it to the slaughterhouse. There needs to be a certain amount of time for the antibiotics to leave the body again. Again, it's not organic, it's not pastured, it's not, but it's still better than nothing. And then, of course, the living conditions and the feeding, yeah, that is different. I mean, organic animals, they just have continuous access to the outdoors. The regular raised animals don't have that. And there is a minimum with regards to the amount of space they need to have. But yes, I can see where vegetarians and vegans are really upset about that. There's a lot that we could do to improve that, basically. Also, food-wise, organic animals don't get GMO food. They get the real food that the animals are supposed to eat. So yeah, organic, ideally. But if not available, I still choose for conventional meat, if you wish. However, and this is what you see more and more farmers, especially in the States, you hear this more, I don't know about Europe, is raising cattle in a regenerative way. So basically have them outside and make them part of the ecosystem, because they are animals, we all are part of the ecosystem. And cattle, when they're raised in that way, they can actually restore soil through their hoofs. The way they move around on the soil turns the soil around. They eat grass. They're part of the ecosystem of the planet, not when they're in a cage, but when they're outside. So sorry?
The manure as well.
The manure is very important as well. Other animals feed off that again, so they're part of it. Contrary to, for example, the monocropping, because this is where you hear a lot of vegans and vegetarians. You don't hear them talking about, it's like, okay, you eat these animals, surely you're not killing a sentient being, but is this stuff actually good for our planet? There's no diversity. It's rows. I mean, you've all seen it, the rows of corn and the rows, the fields of like endless fields of the same stuff growing that gets churned up after they've taken whatever they take off it, the corn. All the little insects, everything in the soil die. Because it's all the same stuff, it's very prone to disease. So they need to spray it, which kills off animals. Then you got, of course, all the bugs that want to eat it. They need to be sprayed and killed. So there's a lot of killing involved. Maybe not of big, cute, big-eyed cows, sentient beings, but it's still devastating for the environment as well. And the soil. And that's why, like, I think most of the topsoil on the planet is completely devoid of any nutrients, because we wrecked it. So eating meat isn't necessarily the problem. It is part, or let's put it this way, it could be part of the solution if it's done in a proper way. And I would love for it to go that direction. And there is a lot of countries where since I'm carnivore, I did a whole road trip through France. I'm from Holland. Did a whole road trip through France to Holland last year. And you see there's so much space and fields out there where they can't grow anything because it's too rocky, it's too steep, but there's also no cows walking around. Fill those fields up with cows rather than just cut the grass really short, like what they do here on the island as well. They got these beautiful fields, and then in springtime they just plow it all and it turns into like desert soil, and a lot of it is not even being used. So there's still so much to improve, where we can work together with nature, and then nature can feed us. So the bigger picture, the carnivore diet, again, I don't like the word diet. It's more than a diet. You do it, it's, for me, it's a lifestyle, because you start looking at other things as well. Like, okay, what stuff do you put on your skin? What shampoo do you use? What dishwashing soap do you use? Are you drinking from plastic bottles, or should you be drinking maybe from metal bottles or glass bottles? And you start looking at more things than just eating meat to become a healthy person. It helps with better energy. You get sharper focus. I can really attest to that. Greater confidence? I guess so. If you start looking better and feeling better, surely that helps with your confidence. Improved sleep? Absolutely. Reduced stress? Of course, because you're feeding your body right. And it's a sustainable health. On top of that, of course, if you also work out with it, you do any sport with it, especially sport that works with your gender and with your age, because that's a whole difference. We can do another talk about that one day if you want. It amplifies even the results. I mean, we've seen it on the photos that me, if I was 25 and I show you a skinny Patrick, and then I'm 25 and I'm a buff Patrick, it's like, yeah, dude, you're 25. You only need to look at a barbell and you probably grow. But I'm not 25. I'm 50. I'm almost 51 years old. So yeah, movement amplifies the results. It builds strength, it burns fat, it boosts mood, and it's like this positive cycle that you're in. So the carnivore lifestyle is about thriving, not just surviving. And a lot of people are just kind of surviving. So where can you learn more? There's a few big names out there that I get a lot of my information from. They're like medically trained, so they're always there with the first scientific studies or whatever proper information, and I just regurgitate that here in the presentation. Dr. Sean Baker, American dude, 54 years old, just got the world record for the fastest 100-meter rowing in his age group. 13 seconds, 100 meters rowing. The guy is an absolute monster. He's enormous. Anthony Shafee, he's a younger guy. I think he is start 40s. Looks absolutely jacked as well. Is a is he a neuroscientist? Neurosurgeon, I believe. Ken Berry, he's very well known. He's a general practitioner, really big in the carnivore field. Bart Kay is another doctor who's really big in the carnivore field. So, and there's so many others where you can get your information. I just wanted to give you a few names. Then there's me with my website, carnivorefitness.com. And what I do is, since about half a year, I help people, especially middle-aged men. And I'm starting in April now also with middle-aged women, because I've noticed that there's a lot of demand, obviously, from women as well, to initially, of course, to lose weight. But for me, weight loss is a byproduct of becoming healthy. So I do one-on-one programs and I do group programs. That man over there will be joining me for a group program that we're starting next week as well. So I'm very, very excited about that. So what do others say? This is 80. He's got twins, single dad. They're 14 years old, and he is a content creator. He's traveling Europe with his camper van and his two kids. He did the program with me that I did in September, and it was unbelievable. The guy just dropped weight, but not just weight, because yes, but his whole body shape changed. His chest got puffy. His stomach got flat. It wasn't just the scale that said that he was much better. He just looks like a whole different person. I mean, his waist went down 103 to 91 centimeters. Is massive. Like, he says, I am wearing clothes again that I was wearing 10 years ago. It's incredible. Yeah, here was another little video that I showed you from a guy called Paul. He sent, because we have this WhatsApp group, and he sent this video. I put it on social media where he was like, guys, I'll try to impersonate him a little bit. It's like, I'm having a real problem. So when I wake up in the morning, I just look in the mirror and I just can't stop looking at myself. And I start flexing. I look so good. I think I'm in love with myself. It was so awesome. It was so awesome. So he went down from 104 kilos to 93 kilos in 90 days. To give you an idea, I do like benchmarks exercise, because my program is not only carnivore diet, but it's also fitness, to have a double whammy. I ask everybody in the beginning to do like a benchmark exercises. How many squats can you do? How many push-ups can you do? How many burpees can you do? Just to see like where you're at, but especially so you can see at the end of the program how much you've improved. He started with 40 squats. After 90 days, he could do 230 squats. That's how much stronger the guy had gotten. I think the most impressive thing about Paul was that when I spoke to him for the first time, his biggest issue, of course, he wanted to lose some weight. He had shoulder problems. He had joint problems. They were all bothering him. But mostly, he had acid reflux so badly that he had a herniated esophagus. So he basically, part of his esophagus pretty much burned away. He was wherever he went, he always needed to bring bicarbonate soda because he wouldn't want to take chemical medicine. Bicarbonate soda, whatever he ate, whatever he drank, he always had heartburn really bad. Sometimes he couldn't sleep at night because it would just come up all the way into his throat. He tried millions of different ways. He went to see naturopaths, he went to see doctors, sometimes with a very brief, short relief, but nothing really worked. Already within a few days after just transitioning to meat, he said like, oh my God, it's already so much better. And after 90 days, he said like, it's down to maybe a few minutes, once a week episode. He says, I don't even need to take, I feel it coming up. Before I know it, it's gone again. And it was affecting his life in a really, really, really bad way. So, are you on for the challenge? Even just for 30 days? Even if it's just for 30 days. And if you do, let me know. Let me know how you feel. And it works both for men and for women as well, regardless of your age.